I'm not making any predictions at all, and usually I don't like to take things that aren't in the Torah, like the King Messiah here, Ha-Melech Ha-Mashiach, and look for values in the Torah, but it is done, and there's no problem with it. It's just I try to be strict. But if you're going to do it, here's how you should do it. Probably um, use the full title. So don't just mess around with the name and try to make things fit. Use the full title so that everybody knows with no doubt who you're speaking of. So the King Messiah here leaves no doubt, and this is what Rambam Maimonides uses as well. So this is why I'm using it. Um, and it only exists a certain amount of times in the entire text. It's a Kabbalistic tradition that every verse in the Torah corresponds to the year in the Hebrew calendar. So this year is 5782. That means you'd have to go and find verse 5782 in the Torah. So I was looking up the value of Ha-Melech Ha-Mashiach, the King Messiah, which is 458. And as I was going through, you come to the end of the Torah right here. These are the last four entries or matches for Ha-Melech Ha-Mashiach in the entire Torah. And I happen to know that this is verse 5782, 5782. So Deuteronomy 32:27. You notice we're at like the end of the Torah here. There's only one more match, and it's about 50 to 51 verses later. But here in 5782, we do have a match, and it's like all this, as you'll see. But this is significant in a way because we kind of know what all this is speaking of. If you just go up two verses above this, I've shown in other videos that this is 5780, which would be like the year 2020, and it's about a plague in the city and limit the time you spend out of the house, so quarantine yourself. None of you shall go out of the opening of his house until morning. Come, my people, enter into your chambers and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourself for a little moment until the anger has passed by. And then it quotes our verse. And then this would have been for last year, verse 26. I may have reduced them to nothing, made their memory cease among men. So totally wiped them out. Speaking of Israel. And then 27 here would be 5782, which is our verse. And here you can see, if it were not for the fear of the taunts of the foe, their enemies who might misjudge and say, our own hand has prevailed, so this is the work of our hands, we did this. None of this was done by God. ... You see here all this. So it really says like, and it wasn't Hashem who did all this. All this, obviously, if a couple verses above is speaking of a quarantine, you could easily say all this, or maybe all this is just part of it and there's more to come. This is at the end of the verse, maybe the end of the year, something big. I mean, who knows? I'm not making any predictions. This is a match for Ha-Melech Ha-Mashiach, but that's all I'm pointing out.